What does it mean to be unevenly yoked? Most people say that this means that you can't marry an unbeliever. And while that might be a key implication, it's not exactly what this passage is saying. Listen into this video to have a sharper understanding of what this verse means in Paul's letter to the Corinthians, and maybe have a broader understanding of what it means to be unevenly yoked with an unbeliever. To help you get there in this video, I'm going to cover two things. What does it mean to be yoked in general, because we're unfamiliar with what that means? And secondly, what are the implications for your life today? Alright, first of all, what does it mean to be unevenly yoked? Most of us are not in agricultural settings, so this is kind of an odd thing to say. But to be unevenly yoked refers to having maybe a couple oxen who are pulling something with a yoke on their neck. They're pulling a plow, or they're pulling just some object behind them. And so a yoke is an attachment to their necks, and it would be attached to a wagon or something behind them, and they'd be pushing forward. Now if you're unevenly yoked, you might have an ox and say a donkey. Those are two different animals, and one's stronger, one's weaker, and it would just not work. You would be pulling in one direction. It'd be inefficient. This is probably then, therefore, an allusion to the Old Testament. There's passages like Deuteronomy 22 and Leviticus 19 that says that you shouldn't unevenly yoke. Perhaps there's also connection in Numbers 25 where Israel was yoked to Baal at Peor, which is a huge problem. Likely there is this connection given the connection to Belial in the next verse as well. Okay, so second, what does this actually mean? If the analogy or metaphor or whatever is referring to two animals unevenly yoked for a job, how does this apply to Christians or to people in general? Well, yes, it probably does imply that a Christian should not marry an unbeliever. I mean, it's pretty straightforward from this passage. What partnership has righteousness with lawlessness? Or what fellowship has light with darkness, Paul says? What accord has Christ with Belial? Or what portion does a believer share with an unbeliever? What agreement has the temple of God with idols? For we are the temple of the living God, as God said. And then there's a citation here from the Old Testament, from Leviticus in particular. God will dwell with us, and so on. Likely there's a broader application here that these partnerships are not just marriage, but there's this idea that you can't do common gospel work with someone who is darkness, evil, Belial. You can't be yoked with Baal at Peor. You have to avoid this because you'll be unevenly yoked. You'll be pulling a wagon, pulling a plow, and it'll be going sideways, not straight, and you'll not be working well together. So does this mean that you can't marry an unbeliever? Probably, yeah. Does this mean that that's all this passage is talking about? No, it has a much broader application for how Christians should think about the work that they're doing as the church. It's pretty important that Paul says we in the plural of the temple of God, and the context here is the Spirit indwells the church collectively. So this probably is not an individualistic command, like you can't go to the marketplace and buy Cheetos at the store. This is likely a command for the church congregation not to do gospel ministry with those who are darkness, which is pretty clear in the context of 2 Corinthians, when you realize that Paul is writing against a number of false Christians who have been influencing the Corinthian church. Paul is warning them against them. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe and like for more.